And well, welcome to the world today. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Here's what's coming up within the half hour. Japan's record-breaking rainfall triggers widespread flooding and landslides, killing 8 people in Chiba district. Reformed UK leader Nigel Farage faces new renewed watchdog probe after Clacton by-election victory. Plus, United Nations calls on international community to rapidly scale up support to Syrians, saying the country stands at a critical juncture. Let's begin the world today. Thanks again for joining us on the program today. We begin in Japan, where at least 8 people have been killed, many others injured after record-breaking rainfall triggered widespread flooding and landslides in Chiba district just east of Tokyo. The extreme weather brought transport to a standstill, with around 7,000 passengers stranded overnight at Tokyo's Narita airport, while rail services and major highways were suspended. Chiba Governor Toshihito Kumagai calls the condition extremely unusual, saying he's never experienced such rainfall despite responding to numerous past disasters. With heavy rain expected to continue, emergency crews are racing to reach those still trapped and assess the full extent of damage. Elsewhere in Croatia, a fast-moving wildfire has ripped through the hills above Omis in the Dalmatian coast, destroying homes and vehicles and forcing residents and tourists to evacuate. Firefighters backed by vehicles and waterbombing aircraft have been deployed to contain the blaze from further spreading. The Adriatic coastal road remains closed through the affected area as crews continue working to prevent the fire from spreading. More weather conditions, this time in Spain, where an out-of-control wildfire continues to burn across Huesca province. Firefighters in the northeastern region of the country are racing to protect the historic monasteries of San Juan del Pina. Flames have torn through forested hillsides towards a monastery complex, with thick smoke blanketing the surrounding landscape. The fire remains active after scorching more than 9,000 hectares, with difficult terrain, shifting winds, and repeated flare-ups hampering efforts to bring it under control. Around 500 firefighters and emergency personnel, backed by roughly 30 aircraft, have reportedly been battling the blaze across a perimeter stretching nearly 60 kilometers. Crews have concentrated their efforts on stopping the flames from reaching the old and new monasteries of San Juan de la Pina, historic landmarks closely linked to the birth of the Kingdom of Aragon. Fire came dangerously close to the complex, prompting authorities to move royal remains and other historic artifacts from the old monastery to the Museum of Huesca for safekeeping. Away from natural disasters, Ecuadorian police have seized hundreds of packages of cocaine hidden inside a lorry near the Colombian border, with many of the packages bearing the image of Norwegian football star Erling Haaland. Police initially reported finding 370 packages weighing about 370 kilograms. However, Ecuador prosecutor's office later confirmed that forensic weighing put the total at 469.6 kilograms. Of the 370 packages, 339 were marked Haaland and 31 Messi. Head of the Khaki Anti-Drug Investigation Unit, Jimena Sangiza, said the seizure has prevented millions of doses from reaching the legal market. In the meantime, authorities have detained the driver of the lorry, Maria Casedo. Prosecutors have charged her with alleged large-scale drug trafficking, and a judge ordered her to be held in pre-trial detention while investigation continues. But in the UK, a parliamentary standard investigation into a $5 million gift received by Nigel Farage has been reopened following his victory in the Clacton by-election. The probe into an alleged failure to declare an interest was paused after Farage resigned as an MP last month amid scrutiny of his financial backing triggering the by-election. Farage secured 63% of the vote on a 44% turnout in an unusual contest featuring a record 34 candidates, while all major Westminster parties boycotted the election. Earlier, Farage returned to Parliament claiming an overwhelming victory just weeks after quitting his seat and triggering the contest.
I called this by-election because I wanted the people of Clacton, the voters of this constituency, to be my judge, not the mainstream media in Britain and the political establishment who paint us out to be criminals and bad people every day. So I asked the voters of Clacton to be my jury. And the verdict has now come in. And the verdict is in, and it is a convincing, overwhelming win with more votes on the hottest day of the year, in the middle of August, in holiday season. We have secured far more votes than we got in the general election of 2024. And in doing so, we have beaten the candidate for the Uniparty. Yes, there were Liberal Democrats, Labour and Conservative canvassers out canvassing for Count Binface.
To the Middle East now, Israeli tanks, bulldozers and other military vehicles have moved between homes in Zouta al-Shakia in southern Lebanon. The scenes follow further Israeli military operations in the town. Lebanon's national news agency reports that Israeli forces blew up the four-story Sheikh Naim Mahdi official school in the center of Zouta al-Shakia. Meanwhile, the town's local council has appealed to Lebanon's presidency and the government to intervene, calling for political and diplomatic action to stop what it describes as the bulldozing and destruction of homes, property and infrastructure. Israeli troops remain active across southern Lebanon, where the military says it is operating against Hezbollah and maintaining a security zone. The United Nations is calling on international community to rapidly scale up support to Syrians, saying the country stands at a critical juncture as growing numbers of refugees and internally displaced persons return after years of conflict. Concluding a week-long visit to Syria, UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Baram Salih, urged government, development and financing partners to translate the momentum around returns into tangible support for recovery, livelihoods, infrastructure and basic services, while continuing to address significant humanitarian needs. The visit underscores UNHCR's commitment to Syria as the country moves from years of displacement towards recovery, reintegration and stabilization. Nearly 4 million Syrian refugees remain in Turkey, Lebanon, Jordan, Iraq and Egypt. UNHCR affirms its commitment to supporting host governments to protecting refugees and ensuring that any returns are voluntary, in safety and dignity, while still investing inside Syria to help those refugees choosing to return home. We're back in Europe, where environmentalists are calling it a step in the right direction. Small firms say it's killing their businesses, but new rules around packaging and package waste are stirring up strong opinions across Europe and beyond. The EU says rules which went into effect earlier this week require businesses to register their package waste in each EU country that they ship to will curb mounting waste. But businesses say the law is overly complicated, as some say they no longer ship into EU nations, both from within the EU itself and outside of it. Sounds a bit confusing, but here's DW's Stephen Beardsley to explain. He's in Berlin. Steve, thanks for joining us on the program. What is this new rule and how much of a change is it?
Right. One way to look at this is that this is a part of a larger process that's been going on for quite some time to clean up growing packaging waste in the EU. Packaging waste up by 20% over the last decade in the EU, according to the bloc itself. So this is the latest step that began in 2022. essentially, and came into effect on Wednesday. And it does some things that many businesses, consumers have greeted, including, for example, forbidding certain kinds of chemicals in packaging, those known as PFAS, which most people would know as forever chemicals, that are these kinds of synthetic chemicals that don't go away that quickly from the environment and have been linked to cancer. It forbids those in certain kinds of food packaging. We may know them from takeaway pizza boxes, for example. What it does is it also lays out certain goals for recycled material in packaging and for the ability to actually recycle plastic containers. Many things say that, for example, that they are recyclable, but are they economically recyclable is the question. What's really gaining a lot of attention here when it comes to this measure, however, is how it relates to smaller businesses who are shipping directly into member countries. And that's really where the controversy is, because they're facing a lot of the same measures as bigger manufacturers, bigger producers, and they say that's unfair.
It is. It does sound so. But why are businesses up in arms if this is good for the environment?
Yeah, they are. And in particular, what they're upset about is when you look at the text of this new measure, which, by the way, is 124 pages, then it requires that each of them has a representative in the member nation into which they're shipping. So that means that you have 27 different member nations in the EU, and that you're supposed to, as a small, let's say, bookseller, let's say you're a craft jewelry maker, let's say you're a small bakery that sells across the border, or you sell into the EU, you need to, in theory, have a representative for each of these 27 markets that can then speak to what kinds of materials you have in your packaging. And so, not surprisingly, many of these smaller firms are saying, we can't afford to do that. We don't understand how to do that. Now, a retail association in Germany estimated that the cost of putting up a representative in one of these nations would be a few €100 for each nation. Again, there are 27 different member states. So whether you're shipping from Germany into Austria or Norway or Sweden, I should say, or whether you are shipping from Australia or anywhere else into the EU, you face those same regulations.
Yeah. What does the EU say about the frustration from these businesses?
Member states should be flexible, that they should try and ease into these rules, that they shouldn't seek to ban products from coming into the EU right away, and that they should issue warnings instead of penalties. The question is whether that's enough. Again, the burden right now is pretty large for smaller firms. Now, we are also hearing that some members of the European Parliament are trying to work on this language to basically take away this kind of requirement that every small firm have a representative in one of the 27 nations. So there is work being done on it. There's acknowledgement that it is a problem. At the same time, the EU says this is part of a larger effort that is moving in the proper direction. It's about cleaning up the EU. It's about taking care of this kind of boom in packaging material that the EU and frankly every nation around the world has seen in the past decade. This is the largest consumer market in the world. It can force businesses of all sizes to follow its rules. The question is it going to affect smaller businesses and smaller little outlets in such a way that is prohibitive? And I think this is especially an important question right now when you look at the nature of business in the EU, when you look at the economies of the EU, which have been struggling in recent years. So when this effort was really started in 2022, the economies in the EU looked a bit different than they do now. And so this is part of an ongoing tension in the environmental goals of the EU versus what's good for businesses.
Really interesting. Steve, thanks again for bringing this to our attention. We're off on a short break on The World Today. Still ahead. Humanoid robots are going paddle to paddle with human players in Beijing. They're also sharpening their table tennis skills ahead of the 2026 World Humanoid Robot Games. Turkey is urging Egypt to join a new defense agreement signed with Saudi Arabia and Pakistan as regional powers seek to strengthen security cooperation amid escalating Middle East tensions. The Mecca Joint Defense Agreement includes a key commitment that an attack on one of the three signatories would be treated as an attack on all. Turkish President Recep Erdogan says he hopes other countries will join the pact, which he describes as an effort to help stabilize a region ravaged by conflict. Egypt's Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati says Cairo must first assess the agreement's legal and constitutional implications, particularly the obligations that would come with a mutual defense commitment. The pact comes as Middle East deals with the wider fallout from the 5-month US-Iran war, which has disrupted shipping through the Strait of Hormuz and the Red Sea and shaken the region's security balance. The new agreement also highlights closer ties between Turkey and Saudi Arabia as regional powers reassess their security partnerships. Former Nepalese Prime Minister Sher Durba has returned to Kathmandu after more than 5 months abroad, where he received medical treatment for injuries sustained during last year's Gen Z protests. The 80-year-old former Prime Minister was greeted by senior Nepali Congress leaders after arriving at Tebovan International Airport, where he was escorted through a tight security cordon. Durba and his wife, Arzu Durba, were seriously injured when protesters attacked their home in September last year. The youth-led demonstrations, fueled by anger over corruption and a government social media ban, eventually forced the then Prime Minister, Khadga Oli, to resign. His return also comes after a legal battle. An arrest warrant issued against Mr. Durba and his wife during a money laundering investigation was annulled by Nepal's Supreme Court in May, which ruled that the required legal procedures had not been followed. Back here in Africa, concerned parents at Settleharry Primary School of Mpumalanga in South Africa say their children are being forced to learn in buildings that are dilapidated, heavily cracked, and in their view, no longer safe or suitable for learning. Parents say they have raised concerns about the condition of the school, but progress on addressing the problems has been frustratingly slow. Our reporter Innocent Amosa visited the primary school and spoke to parents, the principal, and members of the community about the school's deteriorating infrastructure and its long history.
At Settleharry Primary School, the biggest concern for parents is no longer simply the quality of education, but the condition of the classrooms where their children spend much of their day. They say parts of the school are badly dilapidated, with cracks visible across the buildings, raising serious concerns about the safety and stability of the facility. The school's principal acknowledges the concerns and say efforts have been made to engage the education department over the condition of the school.
In fact, they came a lot of times. In fact, they've got a history of what the school is all about. They barricaded some 5 classes and 3 classes so that we don't put children in there. So the learners are no longer there, but I'm applying time and again for the department to come and demolish the place because it's dangerous to the learners. Even if they are not inside the classes, when they are playing around the school, it might come and hurt them. So I'm just waiting for them because the Department of Education, the whole head office was here in 2022. They know the story. They really know what is the problem. They are the ones who told us to barricade the place.
But, she says, the slow pace of response has been frustrating, particularly as learners continue to attend classes in these same buildings.
They're taking time. I don't know. I think that SGB went there more than 5 times to the Department of Education.
For these parents, sending their children to school should come with the reassurance that they are learning in a safe environment, but they say the state of infrastructure has left them increasingly worried. There's also a personal connection of the school among some of the younger parents I spoke to. They themselves attended Maudula Primary School as children and have now returned as parents, sending their own children to the same institution. They say it is painful to see a school that formed part of their childhood now struggling with deteriorating infrastructure.
I'm very concerned. I started here while the structure of the school was like this, and even up to now it is still like this. And I'm a former chairperson of the SGB here at the school. We tried all means to go to different departments seeking for help and everything. We have done all our best to get the attention of the department. Up to now, there's nothing that is happening.
I'm very disappointed.
I am very disappointed. I'm also a former chairperson of the school governing body, and we have approached the provincial department several times seeking assistance. Instead of building a proper school, They provided us with mobile classrooms.
Well, I'm just the mouthpiece of this community. What they need is audience with the Department of Education in the country. Well, what they need right now is speed. They need urgency. They say that it cannot be that kids are studying in these kinds of conditions. From Mpumalanga in South Africa, Innocent Samos, Channels Television News.
Britain has experienced its hottest day of the year after temperatures surged to 38.1 degrees Celsius in London, making it the 5th hottest day ever recorded in the UK. The recording at Kew Gardens came during the country's 5th heat wave of the summer, with around 40 locations across central and southern England climbing above 36 degrees. The extreme weather follows the driest July ever recorded in England and Wales, with England receiving just 6.5 millimeters of rain, around 10% of its long-term average. Health authorities warn people to take extra care in the heat, particularly older people and those with existing health conditions. Temperatures are expected to ease today, but the southeast could still see highs of around 34 degrees.
I enjoy the heat to a certain point, but I'm afraid when it gets to this 38 to 40 degrees, it's far too much for me. Now we're getting more used to them because every year seems to be a hot summer, and so. But I think 76 was a pleasanter time because people enjoyed it more. Oh, we're never prepared, never ever. And as I said to you earlier, I lived in Spain for a long time, and they prepared for the heat there because it's just part of life. But here, they just panic when it gets to a certain heat and bring out all these warnings that stay in the house, drink water, draw your curtains, and if you're over 65, you might as well just stay in or you'll die. Make the most of it as much as you can. Don't sit in the house and vegetate because it's too warm in the house. Try and get out early morning or late afternoon and enjoy it while you can, because it'll soon be gone and it'll be raining again.
Well, thousands of visitors have turned a theme park in southern China into a giant water battlefield as the summer heat drives crowds to Nanning's water splashing festival. Armed with water blasters, buckets and mist cannons, visitors drench each other literally. Us performers on colourful boats, floats join the festival chaos. The event, held at Fanta Wild Asian Legend, draws inspiration from Thailand's Songkran and other Southeast Asian water traditions, where splashing water symbolizes blessings, good fortune, and the wishing away of bad luck. And finally, humanoid robots are taking on a new challenge in Beijing, this time at the table tennis arena. The machines serve return rapid-fire shots and shuffle across the floor as researchers put their speed, balance, and reaction times to the test. The Smash team from the University of Hong Kong have spent around 6 months training its robots using motion data from elite human players to teach the machines how to move. And might I add here, those machines will put their skills to ultimate test later this month when they participate in the 2026 Humanoid Robot Games, which will hold from August 22nd to the 26th. So watching, I'm Amirachi.